Just a minute here. We'll now open the, we're going to open it up for, are there any bill introductions? Yes, Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first one I have two, is concerning the K-Track system and the Medicaid Inspector General. It is RS 2226.
Do you have others?
I do have a second one. It concerns age verification for certain websites. It is RS 2707.
Thank you very much. They will be introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there other requests for bill introductions? Good morning, and please identify yourself.
Oh, thank you. I'm here to ask for introduction of 2636. The bill uses the power of computers to automate the process of sealing certain criminal records from public view. Specifically, it would work with dismissed cases, people who've been found not guilty, and also people who have successfully completed a diversion program. Each of these are outcomes that shouldn't be held against the person, but currently the records are fully available on the public website of the court. They don't go away until someone files a paper process to expunge. So once the computer's initiated a search for eligibility, then the prosecutor and the judge still can view it individually and ask for a hearing. When the bill was considered a year ago in the House Judiciary Committee, supporting testimony was provided by the Kansas County and District Attorneys Association, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and the Mayor of Leavenworth, among others. I thank Senator Bowers for helping get this bill to this point and would request introduction of the bill by the committee and a hearing be promptly scheduled to allow further consideration.
Seeing no objection, your bill will be introduced. Thank you,
Senator.
Are there other requests for bill introductions? Seeing none, we will now open the hearing on Senate Bill 318. Mr. Thompson, would you please brief us?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Good morning, committee. Jason Thompson, Office of Revisor of Statutes. You've got a bill brief in your packet on Senate Bill 318. This is a bill that removes the requirement that municipal courts collect fingerprints from persons convicted of violating certain municipal ordinances. There are three specific statutes that are carved out here. I'll just start with the big picture that the section we're amending, KSA 12-4517, is in our Kansas Code of Procedure for Municipal Courts. It does require fingerprinting for persons who violate certain municipal ordinances. Those include, under current law, persons convicted of violating municipal ordinance provisions that prohibit conduct comparable to a Class A or B misdemeanor or comparable to assault as defined in our Kansas criminal statutes. Those folks are fingerprinted and processed under the statute. The carve-out that's created here in lines 15, 16, and 17 is to say that the bill or the section will not apply to persons convicted of violating municipal ordinance provisions that prohibit the acts prohibited by KSA 8-142, 8-235, or 40-3104. And I've given you a copy of each of those statutes if you wanted to look into them a little bit more fully, but very broadly speaking, 8-235 concerns violations related to driving without a valid driver's license. So if you're convicted of a municipal ordinance violation comparable to that, fingerprinting would no longer be required under the bill. KSA 8-142 is certain violations related to registration of vehicles. So again, if you're convicted of a municipal ordinance that's comparable to that, no fingerprinting is required. And then KSA 40-3104 is about violations related to motor vehicle liability insurance coverage. So you can see that all three of them are generally related to licensing, registration, insurance, kind of similar issues. And that's what the bill would attempt to do. And I'll attempt to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Thompson? Seeing none, we will turn to our first conferee, Karen Torline, Judge, Shawnee Municipal Court, and I understand that she will be on WebEx. Do we have her connected?
I think I'm connected. I don't know why you can't see me. I apologize if you cannot see me. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can hear.
Okay.
Please identify yourself.
Yes, thank you. My name is Karen Torline. I'm the municipal judge in several different cities in the Johnson County area, and I'm a past president of the Kansas Municipal Judges Association, and I also am currently the chair of the Kansas Municipal Judges Association Legislative Committee. Good morning. I am tasked, and our legislative committee is tasked with looking at issues that we see across the state in our municipal courts and addressing proposed legislative changes that make our court systems more efficient and that would aid those defendants that appear in front of us. This is a bill that we've been discussing for quite some time, and we're quite excited about it because we see a tremendous amount of people in our court systems across the state that are charged with either not having a valid driver's license and not having valid insurance. And we believe that those vast majority of those coming in, specifically with the no insurance charges, that is related to financial circumstances. I did review Mr. Klump's letter in advance, and I appreciate his comments in his letter and agree with them in the regard that we don't, as judges across the state, don't believe that these offenses are typically related to folks that have propensities to commit criminal offenses. And with the extensive number of prints that we do for these offenses, we think it would vastly improve our court systems to not take the resources of either the court bailiffs, our law enforcement, or our court staff to have to fingerprint for these offenses. The statute does require, for those offenses, it requires it at conviction. There's only one exception to the at conviction language, which is DUIs and first appearances. But otherwise, what that means is that typically those prints are being taken in the middle of court at the time that there's a conviction. And it's a significant drain on our resources. So we have asked that this bill be passed and that we can cease fingerprinting for those offenses.
Thank you for your testimony. And committee, are there any questions? Excuse me, Senator Bowers.
Thank you, Judge, and happy to help you work on this bill. How much does it cost to have fingerprints taken? What are our constituents paying when they do that at the local level? Or does that vary across the state?
Absolutely varies across the state. The cities in which I'm the judge, I have a $15 fingerprint fee, but it does vary tremendously across the state.
Are there other questions? Seeing none, thank you for appearing today. And we now have no other proponents in person. Please review your file. We have written only from Greg Nickel, part-time judge in Gossel, Kansas, and full-time court administrator for Newton, Kansas. Keith Drill, municipal judge, City of Mission. There are no opponents. Neutral is written only also by Ed Klump, Kansas Sheriff's Association, Kansas Association of Chiefs of Police, and Kansas Peace Officers Association. And Amanda, City Attorney, City of Topeka. And Amanda, do you care to appear before the? Please identify yourself and welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened, but I am Amanda Stanley, City Attorney for Topeka, and we are neutral on this bill because we have some concerns. I think the beauty of municipal courts is all judges have different opinions, and my municipal court judge, Judge Thadani, has some concerns about some potential collateral consequences of this bill that he just wants to make sure that the committee thinks about carefully. We don't care about the removal of the fingerprints. We do not have a position on that. As Judge Torlane said, it will increase efficiency and time to not take fingerprints. Our concern at the city of Topeka is that these are some pretty serious offenses that some of these fingerprints will be waived on, like driving without a license plate or registering your vehicle, driving without insurance. And having that fingerprint requirement right now is what really triggers individuals to have that first appearance in court. When you don't have fingerprint requirements, you can pay your fine in advance and never show up to court, not have to make that appearance in front of the judge. And Judge Thadani's real concern, as well as our chief of prosecution, is that individuals need to understand the seriousness of these offenses. Some of these crimes, if you get convicted 3 times in 5 years, you lose your license for 3 years. And so the best way to explain those ramifications is to have that individual there in court. It's not appropriate for my prosecutors to be explaining that it might be better for them to take a diversion or it might be better for them to do these things. It's not appropriate for the court clerks. But the judge has that opportunity when they're in front of them to say, hey, you know, your fine's going to be over $1,500. Let's do a payment plan. Let's get you here right now. Let's make sure that you understand how these reinstatement fees are going to affect your license. Let's make sure that you understand the seriousness of this. So we are neutral in the fingerprinting piece. We would just ask that you carefully consider whether or not these offenses should be mandatory appearance offenses so that individuals really understand the seriousness of them. And we know in Topeka we can make it a mandatory offense even if this bill goes into place. But people drive all over the state of Kansas, and so we really think as a public policy decision that it should be carefully considered whether or not these should not be mandatory offenses. And thank you for your time. Happy to stand for questions at any time.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Stanley? Yes, Senator Gossage.
Thank you so much. So your position is that when they have to come in to be fingerprinted, they have to talk to someone, or, I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so the statute, and I left my bill there, the statute says that the municipal court judge shall order the fingerprinting. That generally happens when they show up to court for their first appearance. And so then they show up, they have to appear before the judge. He says, this is what you've been charged with. If you have an attorney, they can do their stuff to defend you. He orders you for fingerprinting, explains your rights, and that happens in court at that first appearance.
But they could just show up and get fingerprinted and not speak to anyone. Is that right?
Depending on how the court is structured, yes.
Okay. So I could see if what you're saying is that could be maybe an amendment or a second bill that would make these charges mandatory appearance. Is that because
Correct.
for the purpose of explaining you may lose your license for 3 years if you don't do XYZ?
Correct.
And you don't feel like otherwise they're going to know that or understand that?
Yes, because you get a ticket because you forgot to register your car and you say, I should have done that, and I go pay the bill because I can afford to. I might not know that if that happens again, there are going to be real consequences on my license.
So right now, if they don't show up and they're not fingerprinted, what happens?
If they do not show up to court and it is a required court appearance, you can get a warrant out for your arrest for not appearing in court.
Okay, so if they made it a requirement to come, we would still have that consequence, but they just wouldn't necessarily be fingerprinted.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Stanley. Let the record show that Amanda Stanley gave oral testimony. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 318. Please go to your file folder. We're going to work Senate Bill 190. And again, Mr. Thompson, if you would remind us of what we're having the content.
Thank you again, Mr. Vice Chair. Jason Thompson, Revisor's Office again. Senate Bill 190 is the bill you heard last week. It is the one requiring waiver of extradition proceedings as a condition of release prior to trial for any person charged with a felony. The statute is in our Code of Criminal Procedure 22-2802. It's the one about receiving bond and while release prior to trial, essentially. And so there's a waiver requirement that would be added to the law, which says that the person will consent to extradition to Kansas and waive all procedures related to that extradition if they're arrested in another state while they're on bond, and also that they acknowledge that they're not released prior to trial in any other state pending that extradition. So they'll be held while that's pending. That's the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Are there any questions of Mr. Thompson? Seeing none, I might remind the committee that there was proponent testimony from Greg Smith, Sheriff Easter, Steve Kearney with the Kansas County and District Attorneys Association, and written only opponent testimony from Catherine Stevenson for the Board of Innocent Defense Services Legislative Committee. Do I have a motion to move this bill favorably? Senator Gossage, is there a second? Senator Baumgartner, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor, say aye. Excuse me, I did not see your hand. Yeah. Senator Steven.
Thank you very much. I do think it's worth taking a moment to pause and look at this. Is this pressuring an individual to give up their constitutional rights? And is this a bill that just makes it easier to handle people who are accused of a crime? And I'm concerned about that. And I think it's worth taking a second to warn people to be careful about how we take constitutional rights away from people. And this is certainly right on the brink of doing it in an inappropriate manner. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there other comments or discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion. We have a second. We've had a discussion. All in favor of moving this bill out favorably, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Would you like to have your vote recorded, Senator?
Sure. I'm going to be a no too.
And we have 2 no's. Senator, would you like to have your vote recorded? Okay. The bill passes favorably and for passage. Committee, that concludes our work. We do have, pardon?
Do you want to approve the minutes?
Yeah, it's worth it. We do have some minutes to approve. There should be in your packet there from January 16th, January 17th, and January 18th for your submission and review. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we move on them, I did have a question because on the first minutes happened to be on Tuesday, January 16th. And that's when we had, I believe it was the joint committee with the House. And during the meeting, the committee did go into executive session. And I think that as a matter of record, we should be including that the committee went into executive session, what the reason for going into executive session, because that was read out, and that they came back and then there were follow-up questions. I think that we do need to note the fact that executive session did occur. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Duly noted, Senator Baumgartner, and can we have some help on the proper wording on that? Yes, Senator or Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Jason Thompson again. So if I understand correctly, at least a reference to the executive session that the House committee went into, and then the fact that there were follow-up questions from House members and senators, that would be appropriate. The House minutes will have to have the actual motion and all of the justifications and all that in them. It's required by statute. But the Senate committee did not go into executive session, and none of you were present. So depending on how much of that you want noted, we could try to work on some language to that effect, if I understood where you were going, Senator. Yeah.
Yes, I think that, go ahead, and there was a motion. It was made at that point. I think they went into a separate room, didn't they?
The House members remained in this room
Okay.
and did the executive session with all the microphones, cameras, everything off, and everyone else left the room.
I mean, I was virtual, and so I lost it, lost the connection. But it does need to be recorded that that occurred.
Committee, I think from Chairman's prerogative, we will wait to approve the minutes for that until we see the final product. And but the other minutes are still up for motion to approve. So the minutes on 1/16 are going to be revised, and that will give us an opportunity to see how that turns out. And then we still need a motion to approve 1/17 and 1/18. Do I hear a motion? Senator Gossage, is there a second?
That was actually Robert.
Thank you, thank you. And Senator, all in favor say aye. Those opposed? Thank you, it is approved. And, yeah. Committee, that is our business for today, and I thank you for your attention, and we are adjourned.